this idea for a flow is, this one is a personal one. So even though we try to work around with different datas and different subjects, I thought on bringing this because it's a personal project that started like almost 3 years ago. So in the end of 2020, when I started to, I was in a path of writing and trying to different types of journals, of bullet journals or things to try to organize my life. And along with it, we tried to start talking about feelings and emotions, because here in my context, cultural context, I understand that people here in Brazil talk little about their emotions and even have a short vocabulary about it, you know? So sometimes it's hard even to pinpoint what we are trying to talk about. So when we go through some hard feelings, it's even worse, you know? So my idea with this flow was going through all the data that I gathered along each day, trying to 1 or 2 feelings by day, you know? And of course, there's a lot of gaps because, well, my life has gone through a lot in those years, but I find it really interesting to try to find words to it. So with that, we go through an idea of searching for someone that already has more vocabulary to it. So with that, we go through this that I built as a flow as well, you know, as a form of a work developed by Robert and Gloria, that is this wheel of emotions. So this wheel of emotions kind of tries to make a chart, you know, with 3 levels of complexity. So the first ones are these down here. So trying to just categorize as big, summarize all types of emotions into these 6 ones. So anger, fear, joy, love, sadness, and surprise. And each of them kind of breaks down to more specific sensations, right? So these ones are like the big ones, big categories and in a hierarchy, and then goes down to, in this path, like love, desire, and being loving or passionate, right? So with this, we kind of, this was our try to get more vocabulary, to try to work with our own feelings and better understand ourselves, right? So with that, I say we because my wife joined me on this as well, and tried to get her data, right? But here I'm only trying, I only bring the ones that I logged in, right? So this started in 2020, and if you can imagine, I think it was November of 2020. Not much after worldwide we kind of entered the pandemics and everything like that, right? So it was a really scary moment for, I guess, for all of us. My father and mother are like 70 years old, so that's something that brings a lot of worriedness, you know, and some feelings that kind of showed up a lot. And that wheel of emotions helped us to try to pinpoint some specific right feelings for each day. So sometimes isolation, sometimes agony, sometimes loneliness, sometimes sorrow. We've been through a lot along those years, right? And kind of for me, it was a way to better understand myself, right? And some of those feelings are even harder to understand, and even go are already hard to understand, right? And living through them are even harder. So we lost someone, we lost our one dear friend and for my wife was like a second father to her in 2020 and between those years. And so it was the first time that I experienced sorrow and in the first hand, you know. So what's interesting to get in touch with those feelings, and the exercise every day, trying to have a feeling and trying to pinpoint how was in intensity, how was in how it was perceived by us, and to try to talk about it a little bit. So it was a great exercise to knowing ourselves and trying to figure out why we was so annoyed, or why we're feeling hopeful, or some of those feelings, you know. So when we bring back the second level of categories, right? So the first ones are these big ones, and the second ones are a bit more specific. I understand that for myself, I was experienced lots of days of repetitions, you know, when I saw some of those feelings coming back. So all the time was a lot about insecurities, was connected to sad and fear as a base for myself. And that's already some insight, interesting to understand about a person, right? Because maybe if I was an angrier person, I would be reacting in a different way to everything that was coming through me, you know, all the experience that I was going through. And over that, I was beginning to understand, okay, so what I can bring from that data, because the individual feelings are it's one thing, but how much of it is being focused on positive or negative emotions? So here in this flow, I use this form to separate them, you know, in positive and negative. And with that, I would kind of already questioning my way of logging it. So when the days go by with great emotions and feelings, I probably forgot to use my program, you know, to log in things. So when you break down, you can see that we have all these different lighter colors, right? So the greens, blues, and yellows are good feelings, and the blue to like the blues, right? And to the red ones are the negative ones. So, and I kind of understand a lot that the gathering of data was already telling me things. And even the gaps are important in this, because right here I was going through a specific phase in my life. So I even brought around November, I guess. Yeah, in July of 2021, I started using another program for tracking data in my work. So I am a freelancer since way before that. So I think in 2018, I started on my own as a designer. Before that, I was working on different companies. So only here I start tracking time of my own projects, right? And this light blue here was a project that kind of made me have lots of all-nighters, you know? and you can see the huge gap that creates even in my personal projects. In this place, I wasn't able to do anything else besides work, right? And each dot of these are a task that was created, and the size of the balls were duration, right? And if there after that, we have a small gap in work as well. So I was kind of really in a burnout state here. And you can feel the feelings that go were right after was a lot of pain and sorrow and depression. So I was going through a lot in my personal life, and kind of affected every part of who I am. So in my personal life, I was going through a lot of rough phases, and that reflected in my work as well. But around here, I started to realize and try to create a different visualizations of what was going on. So what was repetition? What was what those feelings were telling me, right? So one thing is to pass one whole year talking about depression, right? And this writing it down or selecting this feeling instead of other ones, right? Kind of bring me to face my own difficulties, right? So with that, I started to ask for help. I was asked for assistance for enter myself in a therapy and trying to figure out what was going on with me, right? And that kind of led me in another path or another depth of self-awareness and trying to figure out who I am in the world and what is my life means here, and what I can do with my work, what is the way that I want to live. So this kind of feelings would stop, right? So how can I decrease the amount of anxiousness in my life, of worriedness, of feeling an inferior person or feeling frightened? And those kind of feelings was really difficult to address too, right? So even most of those things are hard to talk with people. So this was a tool for myself to open up and trying to figure out like how to go through that, right? So how you pass through depression, how do you pass through an anxious life? So with that, I started to create plans and see what I could do, you know. And the first thing that I understand was this is the map of Brazil, right? And these two states, this is states of São Paulo, this is the state of Minas Gerais. So I understand that I lived in the center of a huge city in São Paulo since I was a young person. So I born there. My father and mother are not from Brazil, they are immigrants. So they chose to come to this place trying to, you know, things that big cities drawn people of, right? So amazing opportunities of work or trying to get a better life. And after all the time that I spent in São Paulo, the city was changing, right? It's coming as a country we've been through a lot. So even military dictatorships, financial crisis, and lots of other things that interacted with how people live in a city. And São Paulo became kind of too big, too competitive, you know, in kind of an oppressive way. And it's kind of different if you visit other towns in the world. So São Paulo is kind of has some things like they don't have benches because it's not a city to enjoy. It's a city to pass through, you know, it's a city to work, not to live on. And I understand for me, this was deeply connected how I was feeling during the pandemic, where I was living in a kind of really tight place in an apartment. And now we decided, okay, I'll go through everything. I want to face everything that is bothering me. And that was led us to, okay, let's change our environment and start to begin a new life in another place and see how these emotions will change through this, you know? So this just change happened just a few months ago. I went to a countryside. I'm living really, really inside nature right now. After the presentation, I can show you around a little bit, but this is kind of is working as a rebirth for me, you know, because I was always described by people as a more joyful person, you know, and I understand that the city and the life that I was living and the habits that I had were bringing me down too much. So I understand that this exercise of looking through my data, starting to take notes and journaling and writing about feelings, it was for me the best way to notice them, because I'm a forgetful person. When times get by, I kind of our pain and our late hours of work, all of that kind of doesn't matter. When the times go by, we kind of forget how horrible it was, or some feelings kind of lose their intensity. And with that, I can like use this to navigate through my emotions and what I was going through at each stage. So right now I can understand, like, okay, some of those depressions were connected to the life that I was living at that time, how I was not prepared to face all the problems that I was going through. And now that I have more support in a different environment, I think that all of those, since the next time that life brings me a difficulty, it will be easier to go through it. So that's kind of what I was going through with this flow. The idea to be immersive on my with all those feelings, it's amazing. And I think flow is a great way of using this, you know, for talking about some non-objective things as well. So, and that's something that I think we can do more with our data, you know. I hope I didn't went too long, but I think that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Your color choices
awesome, man. Thank you for sharing all that.